Welcome to another episode of Covered with the Utah FOP. I am Brett Rawson, your host for the day, and I'm here with Brent Jex, Kevin Murray, Mr. Brower. Good to see you over there, hiding in the corner with your little camera. You got a bunch of them. You got a bunch of cameras in there. Are people watching the video on this?
Yeah, I remember everybody said that I had to leave my shirt on.
Oh, that's right. Thank goodness we have Spencer here working the table at the pod mill. Loving it. I'm really happy to be here. This is the second of a couple episodes. We always do two back to back, and I know people hear these a week or two apart, but in the magic of podcasting, we get to be here back to back for these and spend a little time together.
It was only 10 minutes ago.
It was only 10 minutes ago, and I don't know. What did you think about that episode?
I think it was important. I think I think discussions like this are important, and as we were kind of talking in the break, kind of where we go from here.
Yeah.
And how do you capitalize on different things, and I've been following a lot of Jordan Peterson lately.
Oh, I like that guy.
Yeah.
He's been to Salt Lake recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is he coming again, or did he just come?
I don't know. He was just here like a week or two ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, a week or two. Yeah. In our timeline.
In Podmill time zone.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And one of these that caught my attention was, he says, "And if you think tough men are dangerous, wait until you see what weak men are capable of."
Yeah. Amen.
And we were talking, and Kevin, you were sharing a story at the break, wrapping hockey back into it.
Mm-hmm.
So for the sake of time, I didn't dive into this, but every Friday night, my family does a movie night, and we like to reach back and bring back some of these classic movies. And so we watched The Mighty Ducks, the original, and keeping with the Emilio Estevez theme. To the reference in the previous episode, we talked about The Breakfast Club.
Yeah. I'm glad you know what that is, youngster.
Well, okay, I'm going to lose a little bit of credibility. I hadn't seen that until maybe 5 years ago.
Oh, boy.
My wife and I, we were like, what's the big deal? Like, everybody talks about this movie, and we watched it, and I thought it was terrible. But
yeah, spoken by somebody born in the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I did have to share my opinion. But so we watched The Mighty Ducks, and it had been a long time, and I didn't remember the movie too well. But Emilio Estevez, he gets in trouble with the law, and he's ordered to do community service. So he's chosen to be the coach of this Ducks hockey team, and he's trying to get him to go out there and take a fall. He's an attorney in his day job, and a defense attorney, and so he's counseling these kids who are terrible and haven't won any games. Hey, just go out there and take a fall, and we'll take the penalties and we'll go with it from there. And one of the kids just refuses to do what his coach asks him, and at the end of the game, he's yelling at that kid. And a dad walks into the locker room, and he said, "Hey, I've worked overtime to pay for these kids to play hockey, and I didn't work it to watch them fall down on the ice." And he changes his tactic after that, and as we know, Hollywood doesn't like to end movies sad. They come out and they win, and they do well, and it's an inspirational movie. And that's kind of what our community isn't paying for us, paying our taxes, and expecting us to fall down out there. They expect us to do a job, and they want us to be well, and they want us to be well-rounded officers. That doesn't mean that that they want us to be well-rounded in the point that we become lopsided in wellness, and we're not doing the things that we need to keep our community safe, that we're not doing the violent things that they require of us, that they're not able to do themselves. So.
Yeah, isn't it incredible that, and I'm not afraid to say it because I'm a realist, it takes violence in order to keep communities safe. It just does. And I know that's not popular, and if you're watching this right now and you're bleeding out of your eyes, you're You're special.
Don't know what to tell you.
Don't know what to tell you. Yeah, I mean, it's so true. We're required to win the battles. We're required to win. I remember in Police Academy, you guys, I don't know which one of you, it might have been Tracy or somebody, basically saying, and borrowing a line probably from Full Metal Jacket, cops are not allowed to die, right? Marines are not allowed to die. I didn't give you permission to die. You fight, you fight, you fight. And, we have to, and I know we covered this in the last episode, but we're still kind of thinking about it. Our communities want us, truly, they want law and order. They do. And even though there's a noisy group out there that acts like anarchy is, just fine, and it isn't. You mentioned Jordan Peterson. He talks a lot about history, not just psychology, but history. And you were referencing, what weak men are capable of, and he talks about socialists and socialism, and referencing the fact that people that nobody's clamoring to get into these socialist countries. Nobody's swimming the ocean or climbing a wall, to get into these socialist countries. And when you see these people interviewed and they talk about how much they love America, Peterson references some of this. Did you know that the first thing that the communists did to the socialists in some of these, because there's a difference. I know that some people don't understand that, but read up on it. There's a difference between socialism, which I believe is a weak perspective on the rule of law. But the first thing the communists did to the socialists was to kill them. Mm-hmm. They killed them by the hundreds of millions in multiple continents. And that's just fact. And why did that happen? It's because some of these people ideologically were not willing to do what it takes to hold on to democracy, to hold on to capitalism. And, we don't often get political in here, but I love America. Mm-hmm. I do. I love America. I think she's worth fighting for. And I think that the people that created a lot of what we hold dear, those philosophies are not being taught as often in our schools, and people aren't learning about the Constitution the way that I was in 8th grade. You remember civics class?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, civics class was hard. Like, you had to know stuff. I had to memorize the preamble to the Constitution, which I think I still know, maybe. But that was a requirement. We had to know what our founding fathers were thinking about.
Do you remember a few years ago, so Utah passed a law that in order to graduate high school, you had to take the civics test. You had to take the test that those looking to naturalize into citizenship here have to take.
Absolutely.
And I remember kind of the uproar about it.
Yeah.
Like, what are we expecting? And it was like, what? When did that become a bad thing?
Have you ever been to a ceremony for the naturalization of?
It's awesome.
It is awesome. And to see the looks on those immigrants' faces, those new Americans' faces, getting sworn in, the same way that we're sworn into law enforcement or the military, these people are sworn in to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States of America. They raise their hands to that. And this is after taking a test that the average American walking down the street could not hope to pass. That person who is a 6 or 10 generation American. Are there 10 generations in America? I don't know. Didn't do the math. Not a math guy. But they couldn't
that
pass
wasn't on the test.
They couldn't pass the test. They don't know what the branches of government are. They don't know the differences between the executive and the judiciary and, et cetera, et cetera. They don't know.
How many of them can't even name who current one, whatever, but can't even name the vice president. Which I'm like, okay,
why would you want to do that?
I mean, there's that plausible deniability, aspect, but choosing not to say her name and not knowing who it is, or saying that it's somebody from 20, 30 years ago.
Right.
I mean, there's we talked last episode about something happening to the profession, and we also have kind of a dumbification of our public, and that it's okay, and that there's participation trophies for everything. And you know what? We're seeing the ramifications of that. Everybody gets a trophy. There is no such thing as second place. Everybody's a winner. And
it's so detrimental. It's
it
so
is.
detrimental. There has to be competition, folks.
It does.
If you don't want competition, then you are like those sorry socialists that the communists killed. I'm sorry. That's just how it is.
And
they didn't want it either.
And competition is to make us better, right? And we all go through processes. I mean, whether we're testing for a position, an assignment, for promotion. I mean, I came up on the tail end of a couple of promotional testings, enough to know, okay, I'm probably not cut out for stripes. At least I'm not what they're looking for.
You're too hard on yourself. You would have been great for stripes.
So I know where I placed both times.
I know that competition is just it's a natural thing. We need to have it and this is kind of in the forethought of my mind right now, because I currently have 2 pigs living in my garage, as my son is.
No, that's not PC.
No,
these are
these are actual legitimate pigs.
Okay, got it.
As my boy's getting ready to do 4-H for the county fair, and for those of you that aren't redneck farmers like myself, 4-H, you raise an animal, you take it to the fair, it's judged on its appearance, and then it's auctioned off. And so
finish the story, then they cook it.
And then we eat it, and it's delicious. But
Travis buys like 5 or 6 every year. He can't wait to get it on the spot.
He's licking his lips right now thinking about the bacon. So when you're getting a show pig, you can't just have one, because they're not going to eat as much as what they need. They need to have that scarcity mentality of believing that this other one is going to get it more food than it, and so you have to have 2 of them.
Show pigs, my mind went to the Muppets. I'm sorry. The Muppets. You don't remember the Muppets?
Travis is going to send us a text with a picture of that here in the next day or 2.
The show pig that I was thinking about, it was not the one you're talking about. Sorry.
Peg leg porky.
Peg leg porky.
No, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't go there. We covered that.
Anyway, but like in life, that's just what drives us to become better. In running a canine, you have to move kind of quickly for detection purposes, because that dog, in the beginning when you're trying to train it to locate narcotic odor, that dog is afraid that you're going to get to that toy before it.
Right.
And so competition makes us better. And if we are in competition for our jobs, I mean, when we're testing for these jobs, or at least when I was, there was a lot of people out there vying for that 1 or 2 positions in the department.
Yep.
So that I believe that promoted good candidates. And where we're here now, and we don't have as many people vying for those positions, we are suffering that. And we
totally.
We all want an easy life, but we don't necessarily want what an easy life reaps.
Do you want an easy life, though?
I don't. And that's what I tell my wife all the time, is we don't want to be the people or the result of an easy life.
You don't want to be the result of it. There's also just the things that I find more satisfaction in, of all the things that I do, are the things that are difficult, the things that are hard. I look at what we went through on this building. We could do a whole episode on that. Like, the fact that we did that excavation ourselves, and then hear a bunch of lawyers standing under the ground, pushing 6-inch fire line through the wall of a building in a hole that we dug. I mean, that was.
And it was the right hole.
I think so. I hope so, bro. That was hard, but going to work there every day now, knowing that
there's some satisfaction.
Yeah, man. I don't know that I want, knock on wood, you don't want terrible things to happen, but there is such value in work. And you were talking about the Mighty Ducks earlier, and I just crack up because I love that movie, but it reminds me of a video somebody sent me a couple years ago about this Little League coach, and he's instructing these youngsters, and I don't know how old these kids are. These boys are probably 9 or 10 years old, and he's saying, look, if your father is telling you that it's not who wins or loses, but it's how you play the game, your dad's a loser.
Oh yeah, I've seen that, and I agree with it.
And like I remember those days before the trophy for trying days started to happen. There was a time when when it was just understood, and even so today. I mean, we all, the community almost worships these professional athletes, and they have a team, and they want their team to win, and there's great celebration in the streets when your team wins. And so I know that as part of the American spirit, we still have it in us to be number one. And, many of us still regard this nation as number one.
But you know what they call trophy for trying? At least what we're used to? It's called second and third place. It's called,
if you're lucky.
It's called
First
silver
loser.
and bronze.
First loser.
It's called, yeah.
I told my kid
Winner
that the
running
other
up.
day. You should have seen the way he looked at me when I said second place is the first loser.
That's it. Yeah.
But that's the competition of it. That's the. Did you ever watch Last Man Standing?
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
Tim Allen, the dodgeball episode. I mean, that's the classic thing, because he's got a daughter and a son-in-law who are everybody, everything's equal across the board. Everything is this and that. There are no losers. Everybody tries, and and Tim Allen, who plays Mike Baxter, he's got his grandson, and he's like, no, you want to strive to do that. Well, they're sitting in the kitchen, and they hear this noise outside because his grandson sucks at dodgeball, like sucks, and he finds his grandson out there practicing, wanting to be better, and I'm sure that there are some listening that think I'm off, or that we're off, and that everything should be, that it's okay to lose. And there's in fact, I had a captain once pose this question to me. He said, is it okay to lose? And I said, well, it depends. And he's like, why do you think it depends? I said, well, I mean, what aspect are you looking at it in? He goes, just answer the question. He was kind of a very abrupt person, and he was like, just tell me, is it okay to lose? And I'm like, Cap, I don't know what answer you're wanting. And he just says, where's your button? Where's your bleep button?
They gave it away.
They
took it away from me.
There was a bunch of bleeps, just tell me, is it okay to lose? And I was like, well, no, but yes. And he's just shaking his head, and I'm looking down at him, and because I'm a little bit taller than him, and he goes, you're gonna have to explain. I said, look, should the goal be to lose? No, but if you lose and you learn something and you use that as an opportunity to get better to where you don't lose the next time, then how can it be totally bad? It's kind of like we all learn from our mistakes, and as long as we are learning from our mistakes and improving, then is it a mistake, or is it an opportunity to get better? And so I think there's a distinction that we have to make, that just because you don't always come out in first place doesn't mean that.
Well, context is everything, right?
Right.
I mean, because it's not okay to lose World War II, and it's
Right.
not okay to lose the fight with the felon on the street in the back alley, right? You got to win that one. Yeah. So I mean, it just depends on the context. I mean, some of these are opportunities for life lessons, but in some cases there is no further life if you don't win.
So, to quote Nick Saban, never waste a failing. And the man does not like to lose. And this is a little plug for the book that was written about his leadership philosophy. Great book. And
He doesn't even like to win poorly.
no, he does not. He likes to dominate, and
Perfection.
that's the way he runs his programs, and he holds himself to a standard just as high as if not higher than any of his players. Is it okay to lose? I don't think it is. Yeah. But if you do lose, you'd better learn from it and not
figure it out.
Yep.
And figure it out. And
my clients would tell me it's not okay to lose.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, right.
But how many of those clients now would look back and say, maybe it was for the best?
Well, we don't lose much.
No.
Thank goodness.
No, you don't.
But to your point, even in those circumstances, like I've said this before, you can pick your clients, but you can't pick their facts. So, we only have we have the facts that we're working with, and that's all the facts there are. And so in some cases, there's only so much you can do. But there have been clients that, because their life changed as a result of some failings at work, arguably, they moved on to bigger and better things. And that's okay. They reevaluated their lives. Some doors closed, but as I often say, that's just another door opening. And thankfully for most of those clients, they were able to move on. So,
well, I look at it. When we talk about context, it's also what's losing to one person may not be losing to another.
Yeah.
And like I remember it's no secret that one of the things I hated most about training was the PT. I hated the PT test. I mean, I looked at it and I still justify it on some points of my ability to run a mile and a half or inability to run a mile and a half doesn't mean that I'm a bad cop, and that I would argue that I'm probably a better cop than guys that can run it and that can run it quickly. But let me acknowledge that even me, I'm acknowledging that physical fitness, that having a better physical fitness gives you advantages that not being in shape takes away. And we're doing the department PT test, and I'm pretty sure that this is before we switched to the obstacle course one, and we were running the mile and a half down in the river bottoms, and there was one of the guys in the department that was helping was standing there at the turnaround point, and he's telling me, he's like, "Jax, you're the slowest one in the department." And I started to laugh, and I'm like, and I'm like, you're gonna have to tell me something that means something to me. And he's like, you gotta hustle. And I'm like, watch this. And I started to walk. And he's like, I can't believe you're walking. And I'm like, I'll walk the whole thing back if you don't shut up. I'm like, I'm the last one. The only thing standing between you and lunch is me crossing that line. And I can do it short, or I can do it a little bit not as short. But it was that, it's that motivation. And there are things that motivate some that that may not motivate others. But I think there are some universal truths that we can all agree on, and that drive to be the best at what we're expected to do. And I think that's where the narrative comes into play about, winners and losers and this and that, and do you have to be the perfect specimen and handle every call perfectly, to be the type of cop that the profession expects. I don't believe that that's the case. What I do believe is that the men and women that are wearing the badge, that they look at things for what they are. I mean, you look at the problems that we have with some agencies and some investigations, and you look at not just shortcuts, but I mean, you look at straight up, and gratefully these are rare, but falsification of things for the purpose of that end goal of not losing. That it's more important to win the case than it is to tell the truth. And luckily, most of those get found out and those guys get bounced, as they should. I mean, this profession can tolerate mistakes. This profession can tolerate errors. What this profession cannot tolerate is lies.
Yeah, lack of integrity.
And that is the point where we have got to be perfect, and where we can, and not only expecting that of ourselves, but we can demand that of our employers. You know, we can demand that every IA investigator, that every chief and sheriff that makes these decisions on conduct, that they're doing it fairly and that they're doing it honestly. It's the same demand that we have of politicians. I don't have to agree with a politician 100% of the time. I don't even agree with my wife 100% of the time. And so I'm not gonna have that same expectation of a politician or of a merchant or whoever. But the second you lie to me, now it's a whole different ballgame. And I mean, I've got a place that I've done business with for a long time, and one of the guys moved on, and the guy that took his place lied to me about, and it would have been easy, you know. It was like, you know, hey, where did he go? And oh, he went to drive truck for a construction company. Well, he didn't. He left and went to a competitor, and this guy knew that. And I'm like, just tell me, oh, he's no longer with the company, or I don't know. You'll have to ask him.
Right.
But you tell me something that is a bold-faced lie, and like, now why would I do business with you?
Right. Can't trust him.
And so those are the expectations that I think are the people that we're responding on those calls for. Can they trust the investigation that we're doing? Can we trust the response? Are we doing those things that make us better?
Let me ask you a question, because we were talking about competition. Is it a police officer's job to win the case?
No.
Explain that.
Our job is to gather the evidence.
Amen.
It's to gather the evidence. We're supposed to go into it being a neutral fact finder. Right. And yeah, there are some instances where the behaviors of some on the call affect our resolve in digging.
Mm-hmm.
But the obligation is still there.
Right.
And it's part of our system to take what evidence we have, and if we believe that we've got probable cause, then we make the arrest. If we don't, then we pass it off to the attorneys and go, I don't know, you guys look at it.
Maybe that's the most important takeaway from this episode, is that you're in a competition to win the fight. You're in a competition to win the race. You're not in a competition to make the case that the prosecutor, may or may not even charge. Your job is just to collect the evidence. And that is the most ethical and honest thing you can do, is as a neutral finder of fact, go out there and get, everything you can get about the circumstance, but not reading into it, whether or not it meets some impossible standard. Law enforcement is not asked to win cases. That's a prosecutor's problem.
Right.
And I think we get that mixed up a lot.
Yeah. I mean, you were right. We win the fight. We win those. There are those battles where, those instant, look at critical incidents. Yeah. The officers involved are asked to make a rapid evaluation of that. You've definitely got a crime. That crime is that somebody's trying to take your life or the life of somebody else, and your reaction to that is that immediate effort to stop that from happening.
Right.
In the cases where you don't have to, where you've got, I'm thinking of a couple of investigations where, the supposed suspects weren't even contacted. There was no anything done on that other side. You're taking just one side for it. And then making statements in court about, I didn't have to talk to them. I had probable cause.
Let me tell you, I just did a spring bar convention. That's not where you learn how to mix drinks. That's actually where you go and learn things about the law as a lawyer. And there was a segment that was just, it was extremely interesting but horrifying at the same time. And it was regarding the California Innocence Project. And this particular attorney had worked to obtain the release of at least 40 individuals who were factually innocent. And there is no question about that. And these people did, some of them, decades in prison. Some of the ones that had only done 4, 5, 8, 9 years, were the lucky ones. But some had spent their entire adult lives, in prison for crimes they did not commit. One of them was a sexual assault case. There was a 12 or 13-year-old girl that had provided a sketch. They drew the picture of this guy, and the picture was a guy with a goatee. That's basically a guy with no ears and a goatee. And these officers, and I can't remember which agency, doesn't really matter, but they go to the neighborhood and they round up a guy with a goatee. Now, the other thing that she had drawn was a truck, and even though she was 12 or 13, I'm judging by her art skills that she was not an artist, and she drew something that I would expect a 5-year-old to drive. But she drew, and she drew this truck, real bubbly, real just like a child would draw.
So Jeremy's Rivian.
Yeah, kind of like Jeremy's Rivian, like a puppy squeeze toy, Yeah, she draws this truck, and they go find a truck in her neighborhood belonging to a guy with a goatee, and then they do the lineup, the digital lineup where they got 6 guys. Well, those 6 guys, some of them did not have any facial hair whatsoever. One of them, I think, had a full beard. One of them had some little Fu Manchu thing. And then there was the guy with the goatee. And that was the lineup. And they convicted this guy on this. And he did, I don't know how many dozen years or whatever. I mean, just completely upended his life. And they did it because they were anxious to make the case. They wanted to win. And that was the theme with all of these different cases, where there was a rush to judgment. There was a rush to try
To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah, it was. And they put up pictures of To Kill a Mockingbird. I mean, the famous picture of the attorney and his client, at the defense table, horrifying. But the thing that got me the most was when they brought out the late 30s, early 40s female nurse. Looked like any one of our wives. Nice girl from Southern California who had been wrongfully convicted of the murder of her boyfriend. And the entire episode took almost 18 years to deal with. I think she spent half of that time locked up. But for her she showed up. She showed up and spoke to these attorneys and talked about, just the lack of equity in the law. I mean, we talk all the time about we have the greatest system in the world, and we do. But it's because all the other systems are terrible. We're just the best of, a terrible situation.
Well, if it operated how it was intended.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we get sideways, is that and the crazy thing is that we only hear the stories about, those instances, as few as they are, where it's done wrong.
Yeah.
But we've got cops and investigators that all day, every day, have that standard, and they push that, and sometimes it's on deaf ears, and they're getting pressure from supervisors, from county attorneys, district attorneys, to you've got to get this, and they're like, look, I don't have it.
Right.
And if you don't get it and you can't produce it, then fine, we'll transfer you and find somebody that can and will. And it's like, and to those that hold that line, awesome.
Yeah, the job is to do your job honorably. It's not to, quote, try to win.
Yes.
Winning sometimes is
losing.
Winning sometimes is not bringing charges. Winning sometimes is, acquittal.
And sometimes winning is lethal injection.
Sometimes.
Yeah. And that's just it.
It's interesting though. People talk about, how sort of liberal lawyers are, and how law school has a tendency to liberalize the thinking of people. And I experienced it. I was that guy, grew up in a very red family, LDS family that military, and you can imagine what that upbringing was like. But by the time I got to law school, I still, suffered from the ignorance of reality when it came to some of these cases. You can't go to law school and read, 1,000 cases of people being wrongfully convicted and just assume that the death penalty is the right move in almost every instance where there's a horrific crime. And then the reason is some of these guys are innocent. I'm not suggesting that I'm against the death penalty. I think it's appropriate in some cases, but there has to be overwhelming evidence. Overwhelming evidence. And what we were learning in this course is that eyewitness is not overwhelming evidence, especially when it crosses racial divides.
We learned that in forced science.
Yeah.
That what the eye sees and what it thinks
Right.
it sees isn't always.
But
isn't always what it
picking
is.
people, picking faces, forget about it. It's almost the worst kind of evidence. And again, if you're dealing with crossing those racial lines where you're of one race and you're trying to identify somebody of another race, forget about it.
I was once putting a photo spread together, and that was a big topic at the time was making sure that the similarities, and I did one so good that I couldn't even pick the guy that I was looking at. Like I had to rerun his driver's license photo to go, oh yeah, it was number 3. Yeah, how did I not?
Right.
It's
It's
just,
just,
I'm writing
it's just
it down.
a
and
bad
so
way to
it's-
do business.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
And I did one on the female was the suspect,
Yeah.
and
You put a bunch of dudes all around her.
had to
Why?
because she was identified as a guy. Like it was that you couldn't tell.
Confused.
She was-
There's a story there somewhere, I'm sure.
There was, and I couldn't find. Looking through all the booking photos, I couldn't find similar females anywhere in the jail system,
I see.
and so I had to go over to the male side and pull some.
She was air quote female. Is that what you're telling me?
She was ugly.
Okay. All right.
She was ugly.
Okay. All right.
Well, one thing to help kind of keep that integrity of the investigation, as I'm currently doing it, is I have to remind myself if my case hangs on this one thing that I hope happens so much, it's not a very good case.
Yep.
So there needs to be multiple independent factors pointing towards these things, and so, or when I'm requested to come out and do a canine sniff, if you're depending on the dog to make your case, you don't have a very good case. And do I want to do a good job? Do I want things to work out? Absolutely. But you have to kind of keep your integrity, because your integrity isn't worth putting somebody away in jail that just because they are not
Just
a nice
because you
person
could.
or because you could. And you have to maintain that integrity of the investigation and your own integrity.
And if you're spending that kind of time on a case that takes so much to try and make the smallest thing work, think of everything that's getting past you that
Oh yeah.
that are that are needing of your attention. And so I think as we wrap all this in together, it's focusing on wellness for the right reasons and for the right season, making better decisions, and also that accountability. And I think as we globally take more accountability on doing the job that we're supposed to do, and making sure that those around us, whether they are peers, whether they're supervisors, whether it's whatever it is, that everybody's doing the job that we're expected to do, then there's plenty of fun to be had. There's plenty of excitement, plenty of adrenaline, plenty of everything to go around. But sometimes we need to just peel back and look at it from a 30,000-foot view, and and recalibrate and do those things that are important to do, and then move on and have a great career.
Yeah. Amen. And a great career is from having integrity and getting up, going to work, and doing what's right every day. I know we act like a bunch of Boy Scouts, but we should be. We should be.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's a wrap.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. That'll do, Pig.
I'm looking forward to next time with you guys. I may have some interesting things to announce. There's some particular advertising that's starting to crop up here
Yes,
and
it
there
is.
around the town. maybe even some billboards, Brent. We're going to talk about that next time.
Yeah, I'm still gonna. I know you think that it wasn't very tasteful when I did the Costanza pose on your couch. I thought it was tasteful, and I thought it deserves to be on a billboard. So if you don't see that on a billboard, you know that Brett kiboshed it.
It may not have made the final cut, but it was close.
It was close. That's all I need to hear.
It's for his personal collection.
Yeah. No, we'll talk more about that next time. But don't be surprised if you see our law firm in lights. There's a lot going on with the firm, and we're super excited to be talking about that next time. Covered with the Utah FOP. Be safe.